There's a silence inside many men. It's not peaceful. It's not meditative. It's the silence of emotional exile. It's a silence taught, inherited, passed down, just like a ritual. We hear things like, don't talk about your feelings. Don't be weak. Man up. So men suffer quietly. Anxiety hidden behind a strong jawline. Depression locked behind a hard work ethic. Loneliness behind sarcastic humor. Shame behind performance. Now, statistically, men are more likely to die by suicide, less likely to seek therapy, more likely to cope with alcohol, aggression, or complete withdrawal, not because we're broken, but because the model is broken. The dominant script given to men is way outdated. Be the rock. Don't cry, provide, protect, suppress. And what happens when a human being is told to suppress his emotions for decades? He doesn't become stronger. He becomes fractured. That's the silent crisis behind the scenes of modern masculinity. Not just in the West, not just in the cities, everywhere. And here's where the conversation shifts. Because what if the solution isn't found in hustle culture or mental toughness quotes? What if it's found in ancient wisdom, wisdom that already belongs to us? There are two systems of thought I would like to focus on. One is born under the African sun, Ubuntu, and one is born in the stillness of ancient Rome, Stoicism. Now, at first glance, they might seem different, but at their core, both are about mastery. Both are about healing. Both are about accountability of the self. Both are about remembering who you are, not just as an individual, but as a part of something bigger. And when you put them together, you get something powerful. A new model for mental health, emotional discipline, and authentic manhood. Not the hyper-masculine, not the hypersensitive, something balanced, something rooted, something strong. This is the essence of Ubuntu Stoicism. What does it mean to be human? Not just biologically, but spiritually. Not just as an individual, but as a part of something greater. In much of the Western world, the answer is this. You are what you achieve. You are what you own. You are what you can do alone, But in the heart of many African cultures, the answer sounds very different. It echoes like a heartbeat shared between people. Ubuntu. I am because we are. Ubuntu isn't a quote. It's not a cute proverb. It's an ancient worldview, a way of living and being. It says, you don't exist in isolation. You are made through connection, through your community, through your family, through the hands that held you, the words that shaped you, the ancestors whose blood runs through your veins. It is the understanding that your humanity is bound up in mine. So, what happens when a man believes this? Well, he doesn't suffer alone. He doesn't carry the weight of the world on his back in silence. He knows that healing is not a private performance, it's a collective responsibility. Ubuntu teaches us that strength isn't found in detachment, it's found in belonging. It doesn't mean weakness, it means dependence. It means you matter, not because you dominate, but because you relate and connect. Now, pause for a moment and ask yourself this. When was the last time you let yourself be seen, fully seen, by another man without shame or performance? Not as a role, not as a mask, but as a soul. Ubuntu calls men back to that. Back to the sacred bond between brothers, fathers, friends, and elders. It reminds us that no one becomes whole alone. And maybe that's what modern masculinity has lost. Not its power, but its connection. When you hear the word stoic, what comes to mind? A man with no emotion, stone-faced, unbothered, untouchable. That image has become a myth, and a dangerous one. Because real Stoicism, ancient Stoicism, isn't about feeling nothing. It's about not being ruled by what we feel. The Stoics were of all kinds. You had warriors, emperors, people that were in captivity, philosophers, merchants, tailors. Everybody was a Stoic. At least they were capable of it. And still, these men lived through war, betrayal, poverty, and exile. And they always chose peace. Not because life was easy, but because peace was their practice. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, wrote in his journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." I mean, that's the heart of Stoicism. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about responding with intention. You get angry, you don't punch a wall, you pause. You feel fear, you don't run, you observe it. You feel sadness, you don't drown in it, you sit with it and still move forward. Because Stoic thought is about you and not your urges. You are not your emotions. You are the space between what happens and how you choose to act. That's the power. And yet, it's a power that's not loud. It's not performative. It's not dominance. It's about mastery of the self. And that raises a powerful question for any man walking through pain today. And that question is, what would it look like to respond, not from your wounds, but from your wisdom? That's the inherent Stoic challenge. Not to ignore pain, but to transmute it. Not to escape emotion, but to lead it and direct it and channel it. It is a quiet kind of strength. The kind that builds nations, that holds families together. The kind that lets a man walk through fire without burning the world around him. And when paired with Ubuntu, this strength doesn't isolate, it elevates. Not just a man, but everyone he touches. Modern men are taught to choose. Be independent or be emotional. Be self-reliant or be vulnerable. It's a false choice, a manufactured divide between strength and connection, as if the two cannot coexist. You see, two truths can exist at the same time. It's just that simple. But the split is cultural, not natural. Western thought has glorified the lone wolf, the self-made man, the isolated genius, the masculine ideal who conquers alone, suffers in silence, and asks no one for help. But at what cost? Because when men define strength as total self-sufficiency, they cut themselves off from the very thing that makes life meaningful: belonging. When men define emotional expression as weakness, they bury their pain so deep that they become numb to themselves and to others. Ubuntu says, "I am because we are." Stoicism says you are responsible for yourself. At first glance, these seem to oppose each other, maybe even contradict each other, right? One points outward, the other points inward. But the truth is, they're not enemies. They are complements. Ubuntu without Stoicism risks codependence, and Stoicism without Ubuntu risks isolation. Together, they present balance. They tell a man you are a sovereign and connected. They tell a man you are responsible for your actions and still belong when you struggle. So the real question isn't, should I be strong or open? It's, what kind of man am I becoming when I deny half of myself or any of myself? This is the paradox modern masculinity must resolve, not by choosing a side, but by embracing wholeness. You don't have to be a rock or a river. You can be both, grounded in yourself and flowing in the stream of human connection. That's not weakness, that's evolution. So the next logical question is, what happens when a man learns to master himself and refuses to walk alone? What happens when he holds space for others without losing the center of himself? Well, you get something rare. You get integrated manhood. Ubuntu Stoicism is not just a philosophy, it's a practice of becoming whole. It says you can be emotionally aware without being emotionally enslaved. You can hold pain without letting it define you. You can seek help without losing your dignity. Ubuntu reminds a man that he is never alone. Stoicism reminds him that he is always responsible. One connects him to others, the other connects him to himself. And what you're left with is a man who doesn't collapse under the weight of his life and doesn't carry it all in silence either. He feels, he reflects, he acts with clarity. He doesn't project pain onto others. He doesn't suppress it either. He transforms it. Because healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet morning journal. Sometimes it's a difficult conversation with a brother. Sometimes it's sitting with your grief without trying to escape it. The integrated man isn't seeking validation. He's seeking alignment. And when a man is aligned, internally and externally, he doesn't have to perform masculinity. He simply embodies it. So ask yourself this. What kind of man are you building in silence? Is he balanced, rooted, whole, or just performing strength while bleeding underneath it all? The world doesn't need more emotionally distant warriors. We have plenty of that. And we see where it's gotten us. What the world would benefit more from is grounded men who feel without falling apart. Men who are strong externally and internally. Men who lead themselves and lift others. That's Ubuntu. That's Stoicism. That's a new path forward. Now let's talk about masculine mental health from the perspective of Ubuntu. In many places, mental health is treated like a personal weakness, a flaw, a private battle you're supposed to fight alone, in silence, in shame, behind closed doors. But Ubuntu changes the lens completely. In Ubuntu, if one man is in pain, the whole village feels it. Because your pain is not a problem to hide, it's a signal that something in the community needs attention. Healing is not a solo journey, it's a circle. The question is not, why are you broken? It's, how can we bring you back into the balance with us? There is no stigma, only responsibility. Not to fix someone else, but to walk with them until they remember who they are. In a culture shaped by Ubuntu, mental health is not just internal, it's relational, it's relative. You are not asked to prove your worth in spite of your pain. You are reminded that you still belong, even in the middle of it. So imagine this. A man is struggling, not sleeping, losing himself, feeling hollow. In most modern cultures, he might drown in silence. He might isolate. He might convince himself that asking for help is a weakness. But in Ubuntu, his brother comes to sit beside him, not to fix, not to preach, just to be there. His community checks in, not once, but consistently. Because it's not just his well-being at stake, it's everyone's. So ask yourself, when was the last time you let someone walk with you through your darkness? Or better yet, when was the last time you offered to walk with someone else through theirs? Ubuntu teaches that healing doesn't always look like a breakthrough. Sometimes it looks like being witnessed, held, not left behind. That is mental health with soul. And maybe what men need is not just more therapy, but more brotherhood, more sacred accountability, more reminders that you are not broken, you are becoming. Now let's talk about men's mental health from the Stoic perspective. The Stoics never promised that life would be easy. In fact, they warned us that life will test us. We will be betrayed. We will lose the people we love. We will be misunderstood. We will suffer. But the Stoics didn't crumble in the face of pain. They stood still in it. And they asked, what now belongs to me? Because while you may not control what happens, you always control how you meet it. This is where Stoicism becomes a mental health philosophy, not by denying emotion, but by redefining what power looks like. It doesn't look like pretending. It doesn't look like escaping. It looks like choosing your response with clarity again and again. Epictetus, who was born into captivity and later became a teacher, said, "It's not things that disturb us, but our judgment about things." So, in other words, your mind is your kingdom. So when depression comes, you don't pretend it doesn't exist. Instead, you ask, what part of this can I respond to with honor? When anxiety hits, you don't run. You pause and ask, what is real right now? And what is just a story in my head? So, make no mistake, this isn't cold detachment, it's emotional sovereignty. You don't suppress your fear, you just don't give it a throne. And the power is in that quiet. No applause, no drama, just a man sitting with his pain and refusing to be owned by it. So reflect on this. What emotions have you handed the keys to? Who's ruling inside your mind? Your wisdom or your wounds? The Stoic doesn't escape his darkness. He examines it. He organizes it. He leads himself through it like a disciplined warrior. And that's what makes Stoics so rare and so vital for men today. It reminds us we are not powerless even when we're in pain, and we still get to choose the kind of man we will become. Here's the thing though. For far too long, men have been taught that strength means suppression. Push it down, swallow the pain, numb it with work, sex, alcohol, distractions, anything but truth. Suppression is not strength though, it's just survival. And survival is not the same as sovereignty. Suppression is reactive, sovereignty is intentional. Suppression hides, sovereignty faces. Suppression disconnects, sovereignty integrates. So Ubuntu Stoicism calls men out of emotional exile. It doesn't say feel everything, and it doesn't say feel nothing. It says feel wisely, lead yourself, know that you belong. Because when a man suppresses too long, he becomes emotionally numb and emotionally dangerous. Not just to himself, but to others. But when a man reclaims sovereignty over his inner life, he becomes anchored, not controlled by impulse, not ruled by his wounds, not a prisoner to validation or fear. Rather, he becomes a man who can sit with chaos without becoming it. A man who can cry without shame. A man who can say, I need help without losing power. Who can hold another man's pain without retreating into silence or sarcasm. So this is not soft masculinity, this is complete masculinity. The whole concept of avoiding crying is really, really recent. For example, that's not something that men have even questioned when it came to masculinity until fairly recently. And remember, to suppress is to shrink. To be sovereign is to expand. So here's the question. What have you mistaken for strength that's actually fear in disguise? And more importantly, what kind of man could you become if you stopped running from yourself? Now, it's important to remember that philosophy is only powerful if it becomes a practice. Ubuntu and Stoicism aren't just ideas for bookshelves or quiet contemplation. They're blueprints for daily life, tools for building a grounded, integrated man. And here's how to begin living Ubuntu Stoicism today. Number 1, morning stillness. Start your day with silence. Before checking your phone, your email, the world's noise, check in with yourself. Ask, what do I control today? What kind of man do I want to be, no matter what happens? This anchors your mind before the world tries to hijack it. Number 2, evening reflection. End your day with self-honesty. What did you do well? Where did I react instead of respond? Did I lift others up? or withdrawing the ego. This is not self-criticism, it's self-leadership. Number 3, build a brotherhood. Create a circle. 1 man, 5 men, doesn't matter, but build it. Meet monthly, talk honestly, not just about wins, but about weariness. Ubuntu says healing is a community event, so stop carrying everything alone. Number 4, ritualize discomfort. Choose hard things on purpose. Cold showers, fasting, silence retreats. Why? Because when you choose your struggle, life's unchosen struggles don't break you as easily. Pain becomes training. Discomfort becomes discipline. Number 5, service over self. When you feel low, serve. When you feel lost, give. Help someone without posting it. Call your brother. Mentor a younger man. Ubuntu says, you rise when others rise. Stoicism says, virtue is an action. And both say, the path to strength is walked with open hands, not closed fists. You don't need to do all of these at once. Just start somewhere, anywhere. Start where you are. Start with you. Because every practice becomes a layer. Every layer becomes a habit. And every habit builds the man you're becoming. So ask yourself, what would change if you practice 5 minutes of inner alignment every morning? What if your life wasn't just reactive survival, but intentional ritual? You ever heard your body's your temple? What does that really mean to you? Ubuntu Stoicism isn't just a philosophy. It's a daily decision to lead your life instead of escaping it. The world is full of men who are performing strength, but inside they're exhausted. They've been taught to armor up, to fight, to suppress, to push forward without ever looking within. But here's the truth most will never say aloud. You can be a warrior and still feel. You can be disciplined and still cry. You can be strong and still need others. You can be sovereign and still be held. This is the path of the whole man, the Ubuntu Stoic. Not divided, not ashamed, not at war with himself. He doesn't need to dominate the room to feel worthy. He doesn't need to run from his pain to feel powerful. He knows who he is because he's faced his shadows. He's practiced stillness. He's healed in the arms of his community and stood alone with his conscience when no one else was watching. That's what makes him dangerous and safe and rare and consistent. He is not emotionless. He's emotionally sovereign. He does not suppress truth. He transforms it. He doesn't seek escape. He seeks alignment. So if you're listening to this and you've been numb or afraid or angry without knowing why, then know this: you are not broken. You are becoming. And if no one has told you this lately, let me say it now. You are allowed to feel. You are allowed to lead. And you are allowed to heal. You don't have to choose between them. And you don't need anybody's permission. How can we lead but still expect the people that we lead to govern us? That's the opposite of leadership. The next era of manhood doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for presence. It asks for practice. It asks for courage that feels and strength that serves. Ubuntu Stoicism isn't a trend. It's a return, a remembering, a rebalancing of what truly means to be a man. And it starts with one decision: to stop pretending, to stop isolating, to stop running, and to stand fully, firmly, and finally as yourself.